Hi everybody, it's Tatiana and I am in a different location today and my hands may be ashy and the remedy to that is not in this room. I'm in my library room today because I am off for the second half of the day. I had some appointments that ran actually shorter than anticipated and I just decided since I already took a half a day, I'm just going to keep that rolling and continue with my half a day. So instead, I am coming to record a wrap-up video, and this will be my wrap-up for the third quarter of 2018. And yeah, I'm just going to get into it because I don't want this to be longer than it needs to be. I do have my handy dandy notebook with me. I'm going to start with the library books that I read that I don't have handy. I read Dark Legacy by Christine Feehan. That is one of the books in her Carpathian Hunter series. It's book 20-something. I don't know what the exact number is, but that is a series that I just really enjoy reading. It's paranormal romance. If you are looking to that, if you're into authors like Sherlyn Kenyon or the lady, I can't think of the author's name, the lady who writes the Anita Blake series. If you're into those kinds of novels, then it's along that kind of vein, almost more along the lines with Sherlyn Kenyon's Dark Hunter series. But yeah, anyway, I enjoy the series. I enjoyed the book. And next, I also read Sag Harbor, and that was the read along for the that Dee Dee did at Brown Girl Reading in July, I think. My memory is like done today. I did not really enjoy that. I will link the live show in the description box below if you have not seen it. That's the first Colson Whitehead novel that I have ever read, and I wanted to read something that wasn't The Underground Railroad because everybody and their mom has read that book. So when Dee Dee said that was going to be the read along for July, I was like, awesome, and I picked it up and I read it. And I didn't like it that much at first. I enjoyed reading it, but I just don't think I appreciated it for what it was. And after talking about it on the live show and getting Dee Dee's and Michael's and Alicia's point of views, I could see I see it a little differently. It's still not like a book that I would consider, oh yeah, go and read it, but I see the points that they made, and I looked at it a little differently. So that's why I love BookTube, because you get to discuss things with other readers. And the last library book that I borrowed in this third quarter was Bright We Burn by Kiersten White. That is the final book in her Now I Ride, no, what is it? And I Darken trilogy, which is a gender flip telling of fictionalized story of Vlad the Impaler, where Vlad is Lotta, and if you are not familiar with who Vlad the Impaler is, he is the inspiration behind Dracula. So yeah, when I heard that series was coming out, I wanted to read it definitely, and I'm glad that the series is over. Not to say that in a negative way, I liked this book actually more than I liked the second. I don't know, I kind of like the way that it ended because I know some of the history behind Vlad the Impaler, so I was concerned about how she was going to put that into the story, because there are some things that take place in the second book that go very closely to what the actual timeline is, especially with the war between Mehmet, I can't think of what the country is, and before Istanbul became Constantinople. And some of the way that she inserted the story or the events into the story that went into that timeline, I did enjoy a lot in the second book. And I think she did more of that with the third novel as well, but the third book really pays more attention to the relationships between the characters in the story, Lotta and Mehmet and Radu. So, and their growth. So I liked it more than the second book, but overall for the series, I don't know really how I feel about it. It's not a series that I would read again, and that's why I'm glad that I borrowed it from the library instead of purchasing it on my own. And it's another example of why I need to read new books from the library first and then determine whether or not I want to purchase them. But on to the physical books that I read. I read Mind of My Mind by Octavia Butler, and that is the second book in her Pattern Master series. And after reading the first book, which I read 2 or 3 years ago, our buddy read it with Freeform Lady, and after reading the first book, I was unsure about the series, and even starting the second book, because I have this thing when I read books that I get attached to characters, and the characters in the first book I didn't want to be attached to, yet while reading the second book I was looking for more from those characters, and that's not how Octavia Butler writes her stories. And it's the same for Lilith's Brood. Both of these stories are like generational stories or generational series that don't follow the same characters as you go along. So when we pick up in Mind of My Mind, we're dealing with, and like generations later, of descendants from the characters in Wild Seed. And I didn't know if I was going to like it, but oh my goodness, like the more I read of it, and it took me a really long time. It probably took me all quarter to read this because I was not in the best mental space, and so I never want how I am feeling to affect how I read a book or how I take a book, but most importantly, how I read an Octavia Butler book. You all know I stand for Octavia Butler. So I stopped reading it when I was having some difficulties personally, and so it took me almost the whole 3 months to pick this back up and read it. Really enjoyed it, and I cannot wait to get to Clay's Ark. But as Clay's Ark and Pattern Master are the last 2 books that I have to read in Octavia Butler's bibliography, I probably will wait to get to it. I don't see me reading Clay's Ark before the end of 2018, and that's okay. I also read A Princess in Theory and A Duke by Default by Alyssa Cole. I read 2 books, or the first 2 books in her Loyal League series, and these are the first 2 books in her Reluctant Royals series. And I'm not going to do a review of these 2 books. A Duke by Default is the most recent novel, and there are not many reviews out on this, but people are singing the praises of A Princess in Theory across BookTube, and with good reason. I will say I did not, as much as I enjoyed this, like don't take this that I didn't enjoy it. I really enjoyed both of these books, but as much as I enjoyed both of these books, I liked the Loyal League series better. The first 2 books that I read from that. I'm actually waiting for them to be delivered. I've ordered them from Amazon because as I was reading A Princess in Theory, I said it's really interesting that you purchased these 2, but you really should have purchased the first 2 books of the Loyal League, and I borrowed those from the library. So I'm going to just continue purchasing in that series, and I will continue purchasing in this series also, especially since they come out in mass market paperback, so you know that's a lower price point. But I really enjoyed these. I enjoyed A Duke by Default a little bit more than I enjoyed A Princess in Theory. One thing that I will say that I really loved about this video might be 2 parts because this is getting long. I really enjoyed the ways that she brings forth the women in these novels. In the first novel, you have a woman who is in the field of medical science. In the second, you have a woman who is not really she's kind of like a jack of all trades and master of none, but as they both discover what they're passionate about, how far they're willing to go for their work. Like the romance aspect of it is cool, but I really liked these strong female characters that she brought forth, if not strong in body, strong in mind, strong in ethics. And even if they didn't know exactly where they wanted to go, knowing what they needed to do to get towards their goal and making the steps to do that, I really enjoyed that about these two novels. And the two females who are the protagonists in her Loyal League series are strong as well. As just different circumstances, because that's historical fiction. What I will say is I have read 4 novels by Alyssa Cole starring 4 leading females, and none of these novels take place in the course of 1 week. Like, months go by, and I have not read about a single period yet. I find that very interesting, and I don't know why it clicked as I was reading A Duke by Default that none of these chicks have had a period. And I don't know why. Like, to me, that's something that when you're looking at the life of a woman, that's something that's important to share or say that happens, because it does happen. But yeah, and the way that a period would be handled in the 1900s versus the way a period would be handled in contemporary times. So yeah, that's the only big issue that I had with any of the books that I've read by Alyssa Cole. I have enjoyed every single last one. She is my new favorite author that I have discovered in 2018. But yeah, that really stuck out to me as I was reading the second book, primarily because of the length of the assignment that is in this book. But that is the end of the physical books that I read, and I'm going to stop this video here because this is long. So there will be a part 2 that will be by graphic novels and ebooks that I read. So thank you all for watching. I hope you have a good weekend, whenever you see this video. Peace out.